All right, Alabama fans, welcome in. Happy Friday. This is Touchdown Alabama Magazine's Alabama Football Live podcast. I am Patrick Dowd, joined by our scouting and recruiting analyst, Justin Smith. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Pat got an opportunity, of course, to get out to Florida this weekend to see some of Alabama's top targets. Set to compete tomorrow, actually, in the Under Armour Future 50, but was able to get some updates just about the recruitment on today. So it's good to be on once again and talk about some Alabama football, just some things that we look forward to in terms of SC Media Day as well.
Yeah, one of the hardest working dudes in the business, I could say. You're in touch with everything. So, I mean, you were there. So, what were some of the standout things that you saw at the event today?
There was a lot. There was a lot of things going on with the media day. Some very big takeaways. I think one of the most notable things is Olas Alanin, four-star offensive lineman, originally from Finland, who the Crimson Tide arguably had a good lead for. I feel over the last couple of months, but things are getting really interesting with him announcing a commitment date for July 22nd coming up. Had an opportunity to catch up with him today. Of course, he's one of the guys participating in the Future 50 event on tomorrow. And he told me that he feels that he will be taken care of if he went to Alabama. He's comfortable with their coaching staff, but a lot of people feel Miami is in a really good position with them because Miami is on a roll on the recruiting trail. They are literally on fire, racking up top commits, pulling in top recruits all of the time, and look as if the Tide are going to be involved in another Miami versus Alabama recruiting battle with the Hurricanes may have an edge over the Tide heading into this upcoming decision. I know that Raul Aguirre was a linebacker target who the Crimson Tide were going after in the 2023 recruiting class, who the Hurricanes were able to snag. Jaden Wayne, a five-star defensive end, can be listed as an athlete because Crimson Tide did have the door open for him to possibly play tight end. He committed to Miami, so the Miami train looks to continue to roll down the tracks, and Olas Alanin could be their next commit, although he is a huge target for Alabama. I had an opportunity to see him in person, and he's a true 6'7". When you see those 6'7", 6'8" guys, you know it. He is one of those guys. His weight and height is not over exaggerated. It's not a couple of inches or a couple of pounds added. He's the real deal at that size. So the Tide may not be in as good of a position with Olas Alanin as they have been in the past. I feel they are in an improved position with Miles McVay, another 6'7" offensive lineman who looks the part out of East St. Louis High School in Illinois. It's an opportunity to catch up with them. He's actually set to announce his commitment on August 11th, and he's actually planning to get back to Tuscaloosa at the end of this month. The Crimson Tide will host a cookout event on July 30th, and he plans to be in Tuscaloosa. He will announce his commitment on August 11th, I believe, because he wants to announce his commitment on his mother's birthday, August 11th or 12th. It slips my mind at the moment, but he will announce his commitment then. And I think the Tide will have an opportunity to possibly lock up his commitment by getting him back on campus. He has a great relationship with Alabama's coaching staff, so we'll see what happens with Miles McVay. But in terms of the offensive line, in terms of guys with commitment announcements coming up, I think those are the two most notable ones. Another guy who Alabama fans may want to know about is four-star wide receiver Jalen Hale out of Texas, who's down to Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. He actually has an official visit to Alabama playing. He will be in Tuscaloosa when the Crimson Tide take on Utah State. So he will have an opportunity to take in that official visit, but that official visit will be followed by an official visit to Texas as well. Many feel that the Texas Longhorns probably lead in this recruitment after they picked up Arch Manning. So we'll see what happens there, but maybe the Tide can pull off something there. But Miami definitely rolling on the recruiting trail. We'll see how that impacts Alabama's recruiting efforts moving forward. Definitely something to pay attention to whenever the Hurricanes are involved in the recruiting battle at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, a school like Miami, Alabama's gotten a lot of the good receivers from the state of Florida. So with Miami back in the picture now in full swing, they can impede on some of the Alabama territory for the recent years, but definitely homegrown in the state of Florida. But I know a couple people are asking in the chat about Miami's recruiting efforts and how they've shot right up since changing head coaches to Mario Cristobal. And I'm just wondering what your take is on why you think Miami's been so successful this recruiting cycle. Is it just new coach, new blood in there, or is there something else special to it?
Yeah, Cristobal, I think someone coming into down in the chat. Cristobal is an excellent recruiter. I think that goes along with it. I know a lot of people point to NIL whenever a team just gets on a roll in today's recruiting, could play a part in it, but NIL it doesn't have to be public. So who knows in terms of what goes on behind the scenes with those NIL deals. I know that was a huge accessing point at the media days because people want to know how recruits are reacting to it. All of them, most of them have said that they welcome those opportunities. So they're definitely looking into it. But yeah, Cristobal has always been a great recruiter, even during his time at the University of Alabama. So I think it is a mix. I'm pretty sure that they have some alumni or people who are willing to give out of some NIL deals to potential recruits. So I think it is a mix of that, but the Hurricanes are definitely rolling right now, and I think it is something to definitely pay attention to whenever it's going to be a Miami and Alabama recruiting battle moving forward. Another update I think that is really important as well is surrounding five-star defensive back Carmani McClain, who the Crimson Tide in Florida are most likely the top two schools in this recruitment. Came into the event wearing nothing but Alabama gear. He had Alabama shirt on, and basically giving a hint. I would say I think some recruits like to play the recruiting game, so they may wear a certain team's shirt or gloves on tomorrow. That's something that is worthy of definitely getting attention because I think it's really interesting, and I think it's just fun to talk about. I think it gets Alabama fans, just football fans in general, excited when you see a top recruit wearing your favorite team's gear. But he was wearing a lot of Alabama stuff, which is what he has been wearing lately. So I think the Tide are in a good position with him. But he said he wants to announce a decision in December. So there's a long time from here in
Yeah, a
December.
lot of time in between still.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Watch his recruitment very closely. But I think another thing that I want Alabama fans to know in terms of this recruiting journey and this recruiting cycle, I know this may be a time in this recruiting cycle where Alabama may miss out on some guys, and it is discouraging because you won't tell any of these guys. But I think recruiting goes up and down. I think there's a lot that's going to happen. We're going to go through different cycles, different phases of the recruiting cycle. And I think one phase to pay attention to is the decommitment cycle. We see it every recruiting cycle, and it's usually during the football season when a prospect is possibly committed to season is not going good. Their coach is on the brink of getting fired. Things change really quickly on the recruiting trail when there's a lot of uncertainty around a program that you can potentially land in the future. So the Tide could benefit from that. They have benefited from that in the past. So that is something to pay attention to. Recruiting goes in different phases. I think that whole decommitment phase is when your team is off to 2-4 start. You thought you guys were going to be 6-0, possibly push for the national championship. And people are saying fire the coach, and you hear all these different rumors that definitely can impact the recruiting trail. So we'll see how that plays out. I think I talked about this last episode of the process. Well, not about the process last episode of the podcast here, but we also have to pay attention to late bloomers. It could be a guy or two who has a big senior season who the Crimson Tide really like. So a lot is in the air in terms of everything in the recruiting trail. A lot of things going on. I think someone in the comment that said, keep in mind that these are verbal commitments. So yeah, nothing is set in stone. But another critical update I think I should provide is on 4-star defensive lineman Jordan Woodnod out of Tyler Legacy High School in Texas. The Tide are in a really, really good position with him at the moment. I know they have missed out on guys like Peter Woods along the defensive front, Jaden Wayne, but I think Jordan Renaud feels the Tide are in a real, real good position for him. I would say they are his leader at this point in time, but a lot can change in a couple of weeks or months, so we'll see when he wants to announce a commitment. But if he wants to announce a commitment anytime soon, I think the Crimson Tide are his favorite and will be the favorite to land him. He told me that he got to know Nick Saban on a whole different level when he took his first official visit to Alabama during the month of June. He had a great time spending time with Alabama's coaches, spending time with Alabama's players. I think one of the biggest quotes, one of the biggest takeaways from my conversation with him was him telling me that a lot of teams recruit against Alabama, trying to pull his interest away from the Crimson Tide. But in his mind, they are recruiting for Alabama because they are keeping Alabama on his mind, and they are making him even more interested in the Crimson Tide, basically being more interested in what you are trying to pull me away from.
Yeah, and I think there's some similar tactics being played from a lot of different schools with Alabama, whether it's They have so many 5-star, 4 or 5-star guys that go there. You won't be able to get in the field. But I mean, I think Nick Saban can easily spin that to his advantage, where you can say in practice you're going to have equal competition to the games, or maybe even exceed it. So I think that Nick Saban sees that probably as a compliment more than anything else. And I just want to give a quick shout out here to Jamie Wilhelm with that $4.99 super chat donation. We are still taking super chats. We are filling in for the In My Own Words time slot here with Steven on his honeymoon. So everyone, if you haven't already, make sure you reach out to him on social media and congratulate him. But I think we're going to switch gears here, Justin, off the recruiting to SEC Media Days, which kicks off this Monday. Alabama's day will be on Tuesday, but there's still a lot of interesting storylines leading into the week. I mean, I think the biggest one on everyone's minds currently is expansion and mega conferences. I know we touched on it a little bit in prior episodes here, but I think it's going to be a little bit more of a Greg Sankey question, but it really is coming down to a bit of a race between the Big Ten and the SEC. Just what are those two conferences going to do? Because they seem to be really at the top of college football right now when it comes to acquiring the biggest programs out there.
Yeah, I think that'll be probably the biggest question. I think every coach is going to get that question. Of course, Nick Saban, I think, spoke about it recently about how he feels about everything. I think a lot of questions will be pointed at that. It will be interesting to see what Nick Saban's biggest question. Also, I think one of the biggest things you always like to see out of media day is what is Nick Saban's message. He usually comes in with a message, something that he wants to push out. I think previously many expected it was going to be some type of attention pointed towards NIL, but he made that announcement a little bit earlier than expected. So we'll see how that plays out. I think I'm pretty sure someone is going to ask him about NIL to get another reaction out of him, possibly, or just see what he has to say about certain aspects of it.
I'm sure he's going to hit on name image like this. I'm sure he's going to bring up a new popular word, competitive balance, which is one of his favorite phrases now. But I think when it comes to the message to his team, I think it's going to be probably a day of leveling off expectations here, because if you look, I mean, expectations are high for every Alabama team, especially in the offseason leading into week one. So I think he's going to probably make an emphasis to kind of bring everyone back down to earth, per se. And I know it's easy to get caught up in Alabama returns, probably maybe the two best players in the country, and Bryce Young and Will Anderson, but there's still a lot of questions, particularly across the offense, which is something I think that Bryce Young will probably touch on, him being the only offensive player being sent to speak, him along with Will Anderson and Jordan Battle. But I think Bryce is probably going to have a big talking point about what his role is in helping the offense come along even more so now that he's going to his second year as a starter.
Yeah. And then speaking of Bryce Young, I think another topic that I think a lot of reporters are going to push is see who he endorses in terms of the new guys, whether it is a freshman transfer. He has some new weapons at the wide receiver position specifically. I think he has an opportunity to talk about some of those guys. I think he talked about Jahmyr Gibbs a lot in the past, so getting an opportunity to possibly talk about Tyler Harrell, some of the new speed guys, Isaiah Bond, see if they are impressing, I guess, in the offseason space. So I think that'll be interesting question to ask Bryce Young. But in terms of Will Anderson and Jordan Battle, I think is how confident they are in this defense because it has so much experience. Talk about some young guys who they feel could possibly come up and make an impact. So we will see what happens with those guys.
Yeah, I think defensively is a lot of the same, just trying to manage expectations because, I mean, this time last year, it was kind of the same kind of phrases where this is going to be the best Alabama defense since 2015. And now Alabama, and even though last year I thought it was still it was a national championship caliber defense. I mean, they nearly won the whole thing. But when you fast forward to this year, I mean, the same conversation's happening, and they have a lot of guys on that side of the football back. A lot of the young guys got a lot of good experience. So I think they will definitely show confidence if you ask them if this is going to be the best defense. I'm sure they will tell you yes, but at the same time, I think it's going to take time for both sides, both the offense and defense to really mesh going into the season.
Yeah, and another thing we as the media getting the opportunity to do, you guys can drop your predictions in as well. Once again, we're welcoming super chats. We're stepping in for Steven. So if you guys are loving the show, loving our content, we definitely really appreciate the super chats and all of the likes and everything. So and another thing I wanted to hit on today's show in terms of the SEC Media Day, something else to pay attention to. Like I said, we as the media get an opportunity to vote who will be the SEC West East champions and the SEC champions. I'll predict everything. Most likely will be Alabama and Georgia. But who do you feel is a sleeper? Whether East or West and SEC.
Well, I think the easy one to say would be Texas A&M, just based off their recruiting classes and the players that they have back on the offensive side of the football. I know they need to retool the defensive line a bit, but they recruited really well there this past year. And I actually think that they upgraded a quarterback. If Max Johnson from LSU is the guy to win the job, I actually think he's a really good quarterback. And I think even though they're coming to Bryant Denny this year, I mean, they have confidence. They beat Alabama last year. So I think that's a sleeper team. I see Bama Standard put in Tennessee. I agree with them. I think Tennessee is actually – I really like Hendon Hooker as a quarterback. And Josh Heupel did a really good job in his first season over there. So I don't know if Tennessee will be ready to take out Georgia, but I think they're trending in the right direction. And I mean, Arkansas is another team. I mean, you can go through the whole SEC here. There's a lot of teams who would typically fly under the radar who I think are actually going to turn out to have really good seasons.
Yeah, I think it's one of those seasons where you see especially I think if you look at the SEC West, I think you see a lot of teams who season may you probably predicted at the beginning of it. It may not go as well, but it may turn out to be really well. And I know a lot of people are high on Tennessee just based on where their program is at. It's trending in the right direction. They are recruiting really well, so we'll see what happens. Like you said, I don't think this is Tennessee's year, but if they keep on working and improving, they could be closer to it being their year. And a couple of years down the line, they continue to improve their program. Of course, Arkansas, I think they just have this. Their whole team just seems to have this dog mentality where we might be outmatched. We may not have the same type of guys that you have at each position, but we're going to fight you every down, every play. And I think even before their new coach got there, I think Arkansas has always been sort of that team. I think their program just has that vibe to it, and I think that tradition has definitely continued. So they've given Alabama trouble in the past in terms of tough games and tight games. So we'll see if that comes back to the forefront with the Razorback. So yeah, there are a lot of good teams to watch out for. Interesting to see what LSU will do with their new head coach as well. We all know LSU is not usually off of the map for that many seasons. They usually are a program who knows how to bounce back and get back on track. So we'll see how the Tigers and the Crimson Tide see if they can have another historical game this upcoming season.
Yeah, LSU is probably one of the teams I'm going to watch closely going into the year because I think it's just such a fascinating match with Brian Kelly and just the culture of Louisiana football. I think it's so strange. It's such a strange match that I can't really wait to see. And to touch one more time about Arkansas, I mean, they might be my second favorite team to watch, other than the obvious. Because I mean, when you look at their team, like you pointed out, they've given Alabama some tough games in the past, and I think they really embody the mentality of their head coach Sam Pittman, which I think is really great to see. And they may be undermatched in terms of overall talent, but they really fight out there.
Yeah. That's definitely just a trait about their program that I've always respected, and I think they definitely still have that installed into the program with Sam Pittman as their head coach. So we'll definitely. You guys can definitely drop your questions. I think we have a couple of them already. I think it was a couple of recruiting questions a little bit earlier in the show. I think Italian Stallion, any news on Pancake? Hopefully we add some offensive and defensive linemen in this class. He's talking about Samson Okunlola, but his nickname is Pancake Huncho. I guess he really loves to stack up pancakes. To see his junior film, you definitely see why he feels that way. But the Tide are in a good position with them, but they still have. I still feel they definitely have some ground to cover because they are a late team jumping in this recruitment. His offer is not that old. His relationship with the Crimson Tide is not a old relationship. It is a relatively new one. I think the Tide are in a good position with them, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be another battle where you might have to battle it out with Miami. Miami has been recruiting Oklahoma for a very long time. Like I said, they are continuing to roll. In the way that they are rolling, no one is off the table for them, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. Another question I can just hit on really quickly was the Pete Golding's elephant. It has not been a public commitment. It could have been a private commitment. I think we have seen, like, not this recruiting cycle, but past recruiting cycles where Pete Golding tweeted the elephant and a commitment did not come that day. So we will see what comes out of that elephant emoji. And it usually is a guy who Pete Golding is actively recruiting. I know a lot of fans started to point at Caleb Downs, the 5-star defensive back out of Georgia, but Pete Golding is not one of his main recruiters. So I wouldn't look at Caleb Downs as that next commitment in terms of Pete Golding's elephant. It could commit to Alabama. Alabama's in a really good, strong position with them. But I don't think Pete Golding's elephant emoji was directed at Caleb Downs. But if he did commit before his senior season, the Tide is in a good position with them. They could possibly land.
Good stuff. All right, we're going to keep it rolling here. I think we have a question from the Bama Standard. LSU successes or failure-wise with the quarterback. Will Daniels live up to his projection? They're talking about Jaden Daniels there, the transfer from Arizona State, I believe. And he was a guy who had showed a lot of promise early on in his career at Arizona State, but kind of tailed off as the program kind of did. They've had kind of a hectic offseason here. But, I mean, he's obviously talented, whether it's with his arm or with his legs. So I think I'm not sure if he's going to be leading LSU to that college football playoff this year. I'm not sure he's going to be their next Joe Burrow. But, I mean, hey, if you have talent and you go to a school like LSU, who's just, I mean, even if there's a 3-star kid from Louisiana, he's going to be more talented than most players in the country. So, I mean, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think LSU is a team we just have to watch. It's one of those teams where you can't. It's so many different pieces inside that program. So it'll be interesting to see how they start the season. I think that is where we're going to get a full grasp of what their season will look like. I see the Bama Standard. What's the latest on Suntarine Perkins, the 4-star athlete who's verbally committed to Ole Miss? The Crimson Tide are in a good position to flip him. They are the favorite to flip him. Many felt that when Pete Golding tweeted that elephant out, they was maybe pointing towards Suntarine Perkins, but Perkins has not backed off of his Ole Miss commitment, at least publicly yet. So we will see what happens with them. But the Tide is still a favorite to flip him, in my opinion. And if he was to flip anytime soon, back off that Ole Miss commitment, I feel really good about him joining the Crimson Tide, most likely as a linebacker prospect, because I think that is the position most people see the 6'3" prospect playing, because although he plays some running back, I think his natural position will be linebacker at the next level.
Yeah, that's going to be a spot Alabama's going to be looking to fill here pretty soon, whether it's Henry To'o and Jalen Moody. If Jalen Moody is the starter this season, Alabama will be losing 2 starting middle linebackers at the end of this season. So could be a position of need moving forward. And as we go on to another question here from, I believe, Jason Sturkey. What position do you guys think is the biggest need for Bama? Well, in terms of the guys on the team right now, I think they really need to figure out the offensive line, just because, I mean, even with a player like Evan Neal and a guy who was in the program for so long like Chris Owens, the offensive line was a real disaster at times. So they really need to find the right combination moving into the fall that's going to work for this offense, whether it's the former 5-star recruit J.C. Latham stepping up, or if Damian George can figure it out at tackle, or if Kendall Randolph can, or the Vanderbilt transfer Tyler Steen steps in. I mean, I think Steen's probably a favorite to earn one of the starting roles, because, I mean, Nick Saban doesn't go into the transfer portal if these guys aren't going to start.
Yeah. I think in terms of the current roster, they definitely have to figure out things along the offensive line. Also, we spoke about on the last show, the defensive front, those seniors stepping up and making an impact that could be the difference between Alabama having a good and great defense, in my opinion. But if that possibly was, I guess, turn into sort of a recruiting question, what is Alabama's biggest needs, I feel, in this 2023 recruiting class? I think one of the positions that it may not be the most important position, but I think they need to pick up a kicker for sure because I think Will Riker, of course, is going to move on at the end of this season. So I think a kicker in this recruiting class could go a long way. Have a two good quarterbacks. I didn't felt that they needed two quarterbacks, but they pulled in two quarterbacks, two talented guys. So we'll see how that plays out. Talent along the defensive front. I think they're still trying to figure it out. Keep that door open to pull in more talent, put in more competition in that room. So I think the defensive line position is a priority. The defensive back position always seems like a priority because what I always say is Nick Saban, no matter what recruiting cycle it is, he's going to make sure his defensive back group is stacked. He's going to make sure he signs whoever he really wants to get after when it comes to defensive back. So positions like defensive back, defensive line, I think the tight end position has had some problems in the past, but the Tide are pretty loaded there in terms of depth. It'll be interesting to see how much talent, how much production they are able to get out of that particular group, but they have a lot of depth at the position. Now, I know someone asked about Olas Elanin. I'm not as confident as I once was in the Crimson Tide picking up a commitment from Elanin. I talked about it earlier in the show. He is set to announce his commitment on July 22nd. The Tide were in a really good position with Elanin for several months. He said Alabama was his dream offer in November. Got him on campus several times. Got him on campus for that official visit. He said he got opportunity to build a relationship with Alabama's players and their coaching staff. Told me that he feels he would be taken care of if he was going to go on to the University of Alabama. But with Miami having such a surge on the recruiting trail, they are involved in recruitment. Had a lot of good things to say about the Hurricanes and also Mario Cristobal. So we will see what happens. But Miami is definitely trending in Olas Elanin's recruitment. And if Alabama is still a leader, it's a very slight gap. The Hurricanes might have taken the Crimson Tide's spot. So we'll see what happens with Elanin on the 22nd. He's a great prospect. The Tide would have really loved to pick him up. I think it would be a miss, not a disastrous miss, because they could possibly pick up Miles McVay. In August, he is going to be in Tuscaloosa at the end of this month, so we'll see what happens. But not as confident as I was on Olas Elanin joining the Tide a couple of weeks ago.
All right, we're going to take a few more questions here before we wrap things up. Quick one right here from Paul. Has anyone heard from Steven? Yes, we have. Steven actually got married this past week, and he is on his honeymoon. We were filling in this week in my own words time slot, but he will be back on his show next week to have all the latest for you guys from SEC Media Days. And as we keep it looking here. This one's from Sam. I think thoughts on edge player from Florida, Damon Wilson.
Oh yeah. Damon Wilson. I'm pretty sure he's talking about the edge rusher from Florida. The 2023 recruiting class recently dropped a top 5, and the Tide are listed in there. I think getting him back on campus would go a long way. It'll be interesting to see if the Tide can pull him in. I think he is a top targeted guy who they really like, a guy who they really want. I feel they may be in a better position with some other guys. His recruitment is a bit on the quieter side. He's not one of those guys who does a lot of interviews and everything. So we'll see how where Alabama stands as his recruitment moves forward. So I will definitely pay close attention to it to see how it plays out. But like I said, he's one of those guys who likes to keep things a little bit closer to the vest. But another defensive end edge rusher guy with the Crimson Tide really are in a really good position for at the moment right now is Jordan Renaud, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Tyler Legacy High School in Texas. Had a lot of great things to say about Alabama today at the Future 50 Media Day. Guys can check out all of that information on our website. So in terms of a guy who the Tide is in a really, really good position with along the defensive front, I think you point to him because I know a lot of things in terms of Crimson Tide recruiting. We have heard probably down the middle, Crimson Tide losing out on some guys, and the Miami Hurricanes have had a lot to do with that because Malik Bryant is a guy who the Hurricanes are trending with. At the moment, the Tide were in a really good position with him. It could be a mix of where Alabama may prioritize another guy over him, or it could be that the Hurricanes have just came in and used that great recruiting by Mario Cristobal to tighten that race up. But the Hurricanes are going to continue to have a big month, in my opinion. But I think the Tide will have an opportunity to make some noise, still over the next couple of weeks. I think they're going to be in a pretty solid position heading into August, and we'll see what happens from that point on as we get closer to what I call decommitment seasons, where guys are going to decommit because of school that they are looking at. Season is not going well, and their program is not as stable as it was when they were 0-0.
Yeah, well, Justin, every on top of everything and everything, Alabama recruiting. So, I mean, just a boatload of information from you from this episode. And I think with that being said, I think we're gonna wrap things up here. We appreciate all you guys coming in, hanging out with us. Like I said earlier, Steven will be back in his normal time slot on In My Own Words next week. Be on the lookout for Steven and I to be going to Alabama's day, SEC Media Days. We'll have all the latest information for you, and make sure to tune into Justin's show, The Process, every Tuesday and Thursday if you want to still get caught up on everything Alabama recruiting. Once again, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we'll catch you in the next one.